years after, I mean, Alvin Lee was one of my guitar heroes, and I saw him at McGuffey's one time, and I shook his hand in the men's room, and I said, I said, Alvin, you just shook the hands with the only guy in the world that's probably played "I'm Going Home" as many times as you have. That's his signature song.
Yeah.
And he just started laughing. He just loved that. So that was cool. But so I got off on a tangent.
We're talking about the Eagles. And
So the Eagles had opened up for those bands, but they'd never headlined. So this is actually the first tour they ever headlined. We worked with them, and the first one was like on August 15th, 1972. The second date was September 2nd. We worked with them in Cincinnati, and then they worked their way up the East Coast, and then came back. Through Pittsburgh, or whatever it was, and then we worked with them in Dayton, so we got the victory. And Glenn actually said some neat things. I like towards the end of the show.
Glenn Fry.
Yeah, Glenn Fry.
Yeah.
He said, we used this PA about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't so sure about it, but we had a different guy running it then. He said, and these guys run it tonight. He said that sounds wonderful. And he said that to the audience.
Really?
Yeah, and that was very cool.
Because
we were kids,
Yeah.
I mean, what was I? 72, so I was 21.
Yeah.
So that meant a lot to us, and that was my PA. And we went out on a limb and borrowed this concert money for the concert PA.
How did you get the opportunity to do that?
That came about because a local promoter guy, who I'm still involved with after all these years, is Carmen Anastasia. He teaches here at Wright State.
He taught like non-Western worldviews?
Yeah.
I took classes with him. Yeah, I know him. Yes,
we
I know
we co-wrote a rock opera.
You've got to be kidding me.
We wrote an entire rock opera together. I wrote all the music, and he wrote all the lyrics. And it's about the Buddha thing, and it's about
He taught a Zen Buddhism class, and and he taught karate.
He still teaches.
He's still
doing it. Believe it or not.
He was funny. He'd say something. It's very important that you.
Yeah, that sounds like Carmen.
Yes.
Yes. Well, a lot of those concerts, I wouldn't have been involved with one for him.
Really?
The Eagles. He's
I had no idea. He had that musical.
And the Harry Chapin up here at Wright State. He had a hand in that. And, there was a bunch of that we did. Aerosmith. That was it. He was involved with that. Now, a few of them we did REO Speedwagon over in Peru, Indiana, at a hockey rink over there, and that was just through an agency. But a lot of the stuff, a lot of it was with Carmen, and we haven't done anything with that rock opera yet, but we're just now trying to do something with it now. So
really
not, So we'll see what happens. Probably have a better chance now doing something because of the internet.
Right. To
be honest. So, So what had happened with Glenn Fry is that the first show. This is how the way that went. I remember I went to get food for a bunch of people, and I came back, and we had the PA wired up, but nobody was we hadn't gotten the band on stage, blah blah blah. So after I got to this big order of food, and I'm walking down the sidewalk down there in Cincinnati, and that's in the Over the Rhine section, and I heard "Take It Easy" through the wall, and I said, "Man, listen to how great that tape sounds on my system." And I was so excited, and I walked in, and they were up on stage singing.
Really?
Yeah. And it was, I thought, wow.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching them do the sound check, and every once in a while we communicate because it's my system, but they had a sound man with them, and the guy said, "Well, I worked with Canned Heat. I traveled with them." Oh, okay, yeah, cool. And so, it got to the point in the sound check, and he says, He says, Glenn, you know, if you'd back off that microphone a little bit, I could get a lot better sound on this PA. That's all it took. Glenn said, if you ever tell me how to sing again, ever, we're done.
Really?
And I don't know what happened, but 2 weeks later, he wasn't with them. I said,
Really?
okay, yeah, because I went up to the head roadie and I said, you know, I just realized I haven't seen that guy, your sound man, today. And then he said, oh, Glenn fired him. I said, who's running your sound? He goes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I was like scared the hell out of me. And,
Right.
and my sound man too, you know, so there was two of us. But we did. And fortunately, that's what I'm saying was great about Glenn saying that. So
Right.
We'd never run the sound for the Eagles before.
Yeah.
And we'd barely run it for any of us.
Yeah.
Oh, you asked me how I got into that. I got into that because Carmen did a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. He put that together, and he used local people.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out and did 55 concerts around the country.
Really?
With Jesus Christ Superstar. And when we were still in the rehearsal stage, we were practicing down there in the Oregon district, which I don't even know if it was the Oregon at that point. I guess it was, but it wasn't like it is now.
Right.
But we were one of those old warehouses down there. And I said, what are you using for PA on this tour? He said, well, I'll ask that guy and find out. And he brought it to me, and I said, you're talking about playing these stadiums and arenas and stuff down south. And I know, because I saw some of the itinerary, and I said, this isn't going to do it.
Yeah.
He said, well, can we come up with a PA? And I said, I can try. And so I did. You know, got a local company to help me out on it, and that's how we got in the concert PA business.
Yeah,
and we got
yeah.
great reviews. They said every place they said we could actually hear their vocals.
Right.
Yeah, and that was a rare thing in '72. You know.
Yeah.
71, 72, end of 71, 72. So then Carmen started using me to do the sound for the shows. In fact, we did originally had five shows set up with the Eagles, and we were going to play with them in Cleveland and Columbus and I think it was Toledo at the 3 Agora clubs there.
Okay.
So we were going to open for them and do the sound again, and we thought 5 shows with a band that we really like is really great. However, then he found out that the Agora had their own PA systems in all 3 clubs, and when he called me and he says, how do you feel about that? And I said, well, I know what you're going to say, and I can't argue the point. I said, we have no following in any of those towns.
Yeah.
All we're going to do is cost you money. So
Yeah.
So they used the house system. And
Yeah.
we didn't get to work with them on those 3 shows. But, I mean, they were all on that.
And was that kind of a package deal? Were you opening for them at all?
Yeah.
On those shows?
Yeah, we opened on all. We would have opened on all 5, but we still opened on the 2 that we did. You know.
Okay,
But
but
they didn't have a PA. So.
right.
But we did have some following. The people that came to the
Yeah.
concert too, and it was $4.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
see the Eagles.
Right. That's incredible.
I
Well,
paid
you-
$5. I think I paid $4.50 or $5 to see the Beatles in '66. So,
Right.
So,
Well, you had a lot of experiences that were just right up there. You know, what were you more? What are you more proud of? Your production work, or as a musician, the work you've done as a musician? Or is there one that can you separate one from the other? Is there one you enjoy more than the other, or
no, not really. I like both.
you like both sides of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to think I was a better producer than I was a guitar player, but I think the Holsworth influence opened me up on the guitar quite a bit to where I'm
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
But
So then through the 70s, and you were playing with your band.
that was the Blue Max.
The Blue Max.
Yeah, Bachman Turner Overdrive at the Palace, and Aerosmith at the Palace.
Were these like one-off?
Yeah.
Okay, shows.
Yeah.
Not like whole tour.
REO Speedwagon in Peru, Indiana at the hockey rink. Harry Chapin here at Wright State. There was a lot more, but
So very
like Jerry Lee Lewis at UD Arena.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
That was I can't go by that one without telling the story on that one. We played with him. He had 1,100 people. Well, that's not very. That's an empty.
That's a small
arena.
Right.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
1,100 people.
That's
in an
exactly
empty
what
arena.
that is, an empty
Yeah,
arena.
yeah. So, and I remember another thing that was really classy about that concert was that somebody said that a couple was actually in the stage of doing something in the audience. Anyway, but in other words, higher class of people came to see that concert, I guess. But we were setting up to do that show, and Jerry Lee had his son played drums, Junior, and we'd heard he was kind of hard to deal with. That's all we'd heard, but.
Jerry Lee or his son?
His son.
His son.
Well, Jerry Lee, his reputation
Notorious,
speaks
yeah.
for himself. And
Yeah.
so they had rented a drum set from Howard Music, and he sat down and he goes, "I don't like this set." He says, well, the promoter said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And he said, "I like that set over there. That guy's got," and he was talking about our drummer set. So I stepped in and I said, well, maybe we can work something out. And so they did. They put up $75 or something to get him to let him use that kit. And so they do their sound check. And after the sound check, he's sitting around beating on that drum kit. Well, we've got 10 minutes. We can do our sound check, or we don't do a sound check. And this is University of Dayton Arena. So our drummer goes over to him and he goes, "Well, do you mind if I play my drums?" And the guy went like that, pushed him, and he fell back like this and tried to catch himself. And when he landed on his hand and broke his finger, we had to get a substitute drummer to play the show.
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, that's the guy.
Oh.
And Jerry Lee came up to me later and he said, I'm really sorry about Junior. That's 3 weeks later, talk about karma, to the extreme, that Junior got killed in a car wreck.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
Just one of those wild, he's
3
just
weeks
wild in
later.
the street. It's wild. He just had, he just had anger issues and
Yeah.
the whole thing. But I do remember one more quick thing about Jerry Lee is that I went over to his grand piano because I thought, who would set a Pepsi can on a 9-foot grand piano? And I picked it up. It's pure Jack Daniels.
Right.
It's a good cover and a good camouflage, I guess. But
Yeah.
So
That's funny. That's funny.
then later on we did. Then with the Dinosaurs, in the '80s, in the '80s. Well,
Is that the band that followed?
After Blue Max, I think I just kind of did odds and end things, freelance, and because I've always liked it. The most fun for me as a studio guitar player was going out with these bands. Like a band would call me and they say, "We got your number from such and such, and we got to have a guy tonight, or we got to have a guy Saturday night, or so. Can you come out and just do the best you can?" Sure. never even
enjoy
met the
doing
people
that.
before. And
Yeah.
I love the pressure. I love just the fact that because I knew my ear was good enough, I could do that.
Go in and try and figure it out.
Yeah, I just listened to what the drummer and the bass player were doing, and I know where the song was going.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like it would in the studio. So
Yeah.
that's a fun thing.
So you've worked with a lot of musicians in the studio?
Oh yeah. No, not anybody you probably know, but I mean, maybe the local guys. In fact, one of them just died. Bill Wheat.
Bill Wheat.
but known as Fuzz. He played on that Cincinnati record that I told you about.
Okay.
And that was because I was part of the studio band, and he had the best groove of any musician I ever worked with. I mean, I'm just talking about the groove, the rhythm. I mean, he was just locked in.
Yeah.
He could be playing in 21/8 time, and he'd come back on one. And you'd think, there's no way he's coming back on that.
Yeah.
And he would do it. He'd be there every time.
Yeah.
But he was just so funky, and he was a white guy.
Yeah.
And just a great drummer. And he played strictly from feel. He wasn't a reader or anything. And then we did work with Dave Carpenter on when we recorded the rock opera with Carmen. Dave Carpenter came in and played a lot of the bass tracks, and he went on to be the most sought after bassist in L.A. And in fact, he worked in a band with Holdsworth, Small World.
Really?
Small
Really?
World. Yeah. So. And he worked on, he played on a James Taylor Christmas album, and just all kinds of great stuff. He passed a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and at a young age. He was in his 40s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too
Been
bad.
one happened. But he was an accomplished reader. I mean, he was also he could do both. He could just listen and play super, or the reason he was the most sought after guy in LA is because he was such a great reader.
Yeah.
It's like I was talking about, the markets are totally different.
Yeah.
But he was great.
Yeah.
So.
Did you ever spend any time out in LA?
No.
No.
I've never even been to California.
Really?
I've toured
It's interesting with all your musical experiences and adventures.
Yeah, I've played all over. I did a New England tour, and I've done Southern tours, and I've played in Texas several times. I played all over Florida. I played in Kansas. I played Minnesota, but that's about as far west as I've got. So I played. It's about 30 different states, but I've never went.
Was that on purpose, or
no? I
or
just
just
fell in
opportunity?
Yeah.
Just
whatever came about.
So you knocked around a little bit in the '80s. And then what was the next band you formed?
The Dinosaurs.
The Dinosaurs.
Yeah. And I did the Dinosaurs from 1987 until about 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're it's pretty much been your whole career and your and what you do for a living. I've never went for about 2 weeks. I was kicking around going to work for Eastern Airlines, and they were going to hire me. And to do what? What were you going to do for them?
I would have been a steward.
Really?
Yeah. And my mom said, "You're not doing that." She said, "You're
not doing that.
Yeah, you're too good, and you work too hard in the music business."
And about when was that? That was a question I was going to ask.
Well, it's
approximately how old were you?
I bet I was probably. I was in my 20s when that happened. That was the only time that I was going to do something different. And then another time I actually sold Trading Post. Remember when they used to publish the Trading Post in Centerville?
Yeah.
And I only did that one day a week. And other than that, I've always just played music for a living. But I did that trading post thing for that really because it's I somewhere in there to supplement my playing income, I bought and sold rare guitars, vintage guitars, and I would sell them to a guy that I became friends with in New York City, and he would sell them to, you know, Pete Townsend and
Really?
and Eric Clapton and John Lennon and people like that. Yeah.
So pretty successful with that.
Well, it helped. It helped.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
admit, I became, because of his training, I became an expert on Gibson guitars and Fender guitars and Martin guitars and Gretsch guitars. So, you know, I did about all the old Martin acoustics and stuff. And my family had been a Martin guitar company anyway. My dad had Martin from the time I was a little kid.
Really?
So, and that's, so sometimes, yeah, and I gave practically gave, I didn't literally give away, but I practically gave away some really rare guitars, you know, in those days because of that. But I never even would have had them if I had done it, so I guess it all works out. And
yeah.
I sat down with a vintage guitar magazine catalog, and because of my experience in buying and selling guitars all those years, you know, I owned over 200 different Gibson Electrics, and never at the same time, never more than 15 at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually 5 to 15 at a time, you know. But I figured out that if I'd had all those guitars all at the same time, there was over, in today's market, it's over $2 million worth.
Right, right. Wow.
Including the real, you know, like I played a '59 Sunburst Les Paul for many years, and to the point where the guy, Gary Rickrath, the lead guitar player for REO Speedway, and when we worked with him at that hockey rink, he wouldn't leave me alone.
Really?
He kept calling me, he said, "Are you ready to sell that Les Paul to me yet?" And then he had one already.
Right.
You know, he just wanted another one.
Yeah, yeah.
And guys like, you know, Keith Richards has a collection of those Sunburst Les Pauls. Stephen Stills has a collection of old Martins, and you know, he has old Les Pauls. I mean, that guitar would be anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million today. Just
Wow.
one guitar, just a '59.
That's incredible.
So I mean, and the list goes on. I mean, all the rare. I had a '57 Strat that was white with. And had gold-plated parts, and they didn't have gold-plated parts then unless you went into a store and paid the money up front and ordered it from Fender that way.
Right.
To get gold-plated parts on the guitar. So that's called a Mary Kay Strat. It's worth $80,000 today, and that's one of the most valuable Stratocasters ever.
Yeah.
And I got it from a guy that played country music with my dad. You know, he liked my playing, and he said, "I want you to have that guitar," and I foolishly let all that
Let
kind of
it
stuff
all go.
go.
Right, right.
That way, everybody does that. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not like I'm the only one. But, you know, George Harrison, he had a fabulous guitar collection. Same thing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those guys put money in guitars.
Oh, sure.
You'd be surprised.
Sure.
Yeah.
So maybe you've kind of answered this already. What would you say, one or two your most notable or memorable shows or performances? You know, whether it's a tour, a festival, or you know, opening act for.
Well, I know that REO Speedwagon show in Peru, Indiana, at that hockey rink. That was the first time I actually felt, just for a few minutes, what it was like to be a star, because I remember the big crowd, the place was packed, and all these people were just standing, and these girls trying to reach up on stage just to touch our feet.
Right.
Just to,
Right.
just trying to do like.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. this is kind of cool.
Right. The rock star thing.
Yeah, the rock star thing.
Yeah. Was that the biggest venue?
No, certainly not. The biggest venue was right here, what they called Right Stock, which was in
71, 72.
Yeah.
Yeah.
71 or 72. John Euchre did the sound, and we played at like 1:30 in the morning, and it was real cold for some reason. And I remember a guy came up, brought a heater up, and I went over to the edge of the stage and put my hands in front of that heater, warming them up so I could play I'm Going Home.
Yeah. Well, that's an appropriate song to be playing at Right Stock.
At Right Stock,
Yeah.
And we were told then it was 25,000 people.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what.
I don't know. I know there were an awful lot.
Yeah.
You know, that's when nothing was down the hill there, and they called it what that Achilles Hill was. That they called that area.
Right.
We had a former student and alum come by, and he was a film student years ago, and he'd taken some video just walking around at Right Stock, and he let us burn a copy of that, and it was neat. But you get a real picture of just how many people came out here. You know, everybody jokes about Right Stock, but it was. That was huge.
That was probably a version of Blue Max, but it wasn't a great version.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have said that.
That's
Might come back to
right.
But they probably knew that. I mean, it was just kind of a throw together thing, but we did it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that whole thing was. It was a big promotional thing for the university. You know, it was still a young university, and they're trying to get people to come out to be like, oh wow, look,
sure.
You know, and then maybe people decide to come out here. You know.
I also remember the Dinosaurs playing on the roof of one of these buildings down here.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if it was Millett Hall or Allen or it was one of those, for sure, because.
So that would have been the 80s sometime?
Yeah.
Or, you
been,
played with the Dinosaurs a long time though, right?
Well, from 87, and it wouldn't have been in the first year because I remember Clarence was on drums, so it had to be 88 through 90 or 91, right in that range.
I might have been here at that time.
Really?
As a student, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they've always had, not anymore, but up until recently, a big fall festival and a big spring festival. What was it? October Days, but I wonder if it was one of those where they bring the Budweiser trucks out and it was a big scene.
Yeah.
That's great. So playing with REO in Indianapolis.
That was one of it was one of the, like I said, I don't know if it was my favorite concert or anything, but that was a very striking,
made an impression.
Like I said, it made an impression.
Yeah.
There's also over the years I also played with Beatle tribute bands, and I didn't even mention that to them, but and there was a couple times when the people were screaming, and where you really felt like you were in the Beatles. I mean, especially since I was such a fan of the Beatles all those years too.
You're channeling the Beatles a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So
that's neat. That's cool. What would you say would be kind of the low point, of your career? Were there any low points or any times when you were like, maybe I should shift gears and do something else, or
well, probably that time when I was thinking about
a job
going to work for Eastern Airlines, but
and I'm trying to think because
but luckily, it's funny. Well, my dad, when I told him I was going to play guitar for him, you can't make a living playing guitar. He had that attitude, and he really gave me a hard time about it.
Yeah.
But my mom always supported me, and about the music, and
That's great.
It's
That's great.
yeah, it is great,
Yeah.
and I love her, to death for that, because she.
You think you
She
would have
didn't have to
quit
do it.
otherwise?
It's possible. I don't know if I would have or not, but I mean, because there were certainly some times when I went on my own. I mean,
Yeah.
I was out